Al Ewing needs fictional companies like Roxxon to exist so that he can pretend like he's making a difference in the world. Here we are, folks, staring down the barrel of Marvel's latest grand scheme, Absolution. And it's like watching a painter with only one color on his palette. And guess what? It's not even a vibrant one. In April, Marvel's rolling out this spectacle where Roxxon, the fictional megacorp, buys Marvel itself. Yeah, you heard that right. They're not just altering Thor's story, they're gutting it, serving up one-dimensional fan favorites and a Thor that's nothing more than a corporate shill. But this isn't some bold takedown of corporations. Disney's got Marvel on a leash too short for that kind of bravery. No, this is Marvel's not-so-subtle way of nudging its core audience, the ones who actually care, further out the door. And here's where the irony hits harder than Mjolnir. Take this line. The Minotaur orchestrates a plan to bring Thor down. Replace Minotaur with Marvel's own writing team, and you've got the real story. Thor, once a character with depth and complexity, is now a shadow puppet in Marvel's hands, playing out as shallow as the Roxxon version that they're mocking. And here's where they insult the fans. Al Ewing says, "No thoughts, just muscles, a hammer, and zero hesitation." That's a slap in the face to every Thor fan who's been yearning for the days of depth and adventure. It's a disingenuous avoidance of the actual criticisms being given by the fans. We're sick of being spoon-fed these woke narratives and characters being morphed into mouthpieces for writers' personal soapboxes. Superheroes aren't just about mindless fun, but the folks at Marvel, they wouldn't know subtlety if it hit them in the face. Superheroes have stopped being about heroism and adventure, and they've become just platforms for the writers' personal agendas. Al Ewing actually believes that he's being clever with this story, but his so-called satire on the comic book industry misses the mark. He's poking fun at the state of the comic book industry, where genuine creativity is getting smothered by the push for content that caters to the broadest audience possible. The problem is that he is one of the writers bending over backwards to fit some agenda. It's like a chef criticizing fast food while he's serving up burgers. In the official Thor title by Roxxon, we meet Roxxon Thor, aka Chad Hammer. It's got the subtlety of a sledgehammer, right? Ewing's wrapping up his environmental sermon in a Thor costume and hammering away at his message, pun fully intended. It's the same old song and dance from him. Nature good, corporations bad, but repackaged in a Thor comic. The absolute lack of nuance is tiresome. And then there's this gem. Insane environmental activists taking it too far. So there was an X-Men Unlimited Infinity comic where a character named Nature Girl stabbed a shopkeeper because a plastic bag from his shop ended up around a turtle. That level of absurdity is becoming the norm. Now, Jerry Dugan wrote that, but Ewing wasn't too far off in his run on Immortal Hulk, where he made Bruce Banner a climate change extremist. So this whole meta-narrative is just another day in Al Ewing's political playground. This whole event, this absolution, it's more than just Marvel having a laugh. It's a reflection, a distorted mirror showing how far the industry's fallen. Comic books, which were once a haven for groundbreaking storytelling, are now a playground for safe, sanitized narratives. And this isn't just about being politically correct. It's about losing the very essence of what makes these stories great. It's a mockery of the art form, of legends like Stan Lee and Jack Kirby, who treated comic books like they were modern-day mythology. And what about the fans? Those who grew up idolizing these characters, who found solace, inspiration, and excitement in the pages of comic books. They're being pushed to the sidelines, their voices drowned out in a sea of homogenized narratives that no longer resonate with them. It's not just about clinging to the past or resisting change, it's about holding on to the core of what these characters represent. But now they want us to cheer for the villains. They want us to be dazzled by characters like Jane Foster and Sif, who've been shoved into roles traditionally held by male characters in order to gain them some relevance. Marvel's decision to have Roxxon manipulate Thor's image is like a twisted joke. It's Marvel saying, we know better than you what Thor should be. But do they? Because it seems like they've forgotten what made Thor resonate with generations of readers. They've lost touch with their own creation. The irony of using Roxxon to parody corporatization is laughable. It's like Marvel's aware of the problem but too caught up in it to make any real change. Because the parallels between Roxxon's actions in the story and Marvel's own decisions are too obvious to ignore. Both are about altering narratives to fit an agenda, not about telling great stories. And what's really disappointing is the missed opportunity. They could write stories that actually push boundaries and instead we get Chad Hammer and a Thor that's about as deep as a puddle. It's like watching a master chef flipping burgers at a fast food joint. Sure, it feeds the masses, but where's the passion and the artistry? I know I keep using food analogies, but bear with me. Let's take a closer look at how Marvel's turned Thor into a caricature of his former self. Thor, a character steeped in mythology, strength, and complexity, is now being reduced to a mere tool for environmental messaging. It's a gross oversimplification of a character who once embodied the hero's journey. In Loki, he was once a cunning, multi-dimensional villain, and now he's just a plot device, stripped of his depth and cunning, and reduced to a generic, comical figure, and a far cry from the character who once moved heaven and earth just for the thrill of the game. Marvel's not just rewriting characters, they're rewriting history, and turning fans who cherish the original Thor comics into villains in their own right. If you prefer the original continuity, then according to this narrative, you're siding with Roxxon. You're the problem. It's an insult to every fan who grew up on the tales spun by Stan Lee and Jack Kirby, who once again treated comic books as if they were modern-day myths. This is Marvel saying, we know better, while completely missing the point. The fans aren't asking for mindless entertainment. They're asking for stories that resonate, that challenge, and that entertain without pandering or preaching. And let's not overlook the irony of this event portraying Roxxon's versions as cheap knockoffs, and yet look at how Marvel has treated characters like Jane Foster's Thor or this reimagined Loki. They're doing exactly what they're mocking. They repackage characters to fit a new narrative at the expense of the original character's depth and appeal. Jim Shooter, who is an infamous figure at Marvel, with all his faults, did more good for Marvel than these guys ever will. Al Ewing is just another writer using Thor to take cheap shots at the fans. Remember when Jason Aaron replaced Thor with Jane Foster, then mocked the fans through his villains? Now Ewing's doing the same thing, only more blatantly. This is just a corporation using a beloved character to propagate its message. That's Marvel's Absolution event. It's like Marvel's too scared to let writers create stories that genuinely challenge the status quo or actually poke fun at the company itself. This event with its corporatized Thor is a prime example of how Marvel, just like Disney, plays it safe, never venturing far from the mainstream narrative. It's sad when a company like Marvel that once stood for creativity and innovation now stands for playing it safe and avoiding any real substance in their stories. The Punisher symbol change is a perfect example. They didn't change the Punisher symbol because it was the right thing to do, but because they were afraid of being associated with the wrong type of fan. That wasn't a decision made because of principles, it was a decision made because of feelings. And the casualty of decisions made as a result of feelings is joy. The joy of picking up a comic book and getting lost in a story, of connecting with characters and their journeys, and of being inspired by the art and the narrative. That joy is being replaced by a sense of cynicism and disappointment on behalf of the fans as they watch their beloved characters and stories become twisted by personal agendas. They can't blame the fans' reaction on nostalgia or resistance to change. It's about respecting the integrity and evolution of these characters. It's about the essence of what makes comic books special, their ability to tell stories that are as diverse and complex as the human experience. But the evolution of these characters has become not one of organic growth, but by a forced alignment with social trends and editorial mandates. But let's end the video on a hopeful note. The comic book industry, like any other, is cyclical. It's had its high and lows, it's had its eras of innovation and stagnation. And while the current trend sucks, it's not necessarily the end. We can choose to look at it as a challenge, a call to action for fans to push back against the forces of homogenization. Speak with your wallet, voice your disapproval, spread awareness, and if you are artistically talented, then make something of your own. Let me know what you guys think about this topic and this upcoming event in the comment section below. As always, if you enjoyed this video, I would appreciate it if you would hit that like and subscribe button, as well as the notification bell so that you never miss out on a new video. Thanks for watching.